This is Bottom of the Bill. What to you is like the scenario where you'd be like, oh man, I'm happy. Like, you know, this is where I want to be resting.
Well, I guess I should maybe preface that by saying that I don't take anything for granted, and I don't feel like I'm not grateful or anything. I'm very grateful for where I am in my career, of course. But if you don't continue to make goals, then you won't, proceed. You might as well just stop where you are. I would like the sort of like touring aspect of my thing to kind of grow and blossom a little bit, maybe be more comfortable. I don't have a tour bus. I don't have a sound person. I barely have a tour manager. I'm grateful that she is still wanting to work with us, because she normally tours with people who do giant stadium pop tours with giant stadium pop budgets, and I don't have that, So my goal is to play the music I want to play with the people I care about and take care of them the best I absolutely can. And I know we can do, but you can always do better. Now, will everyone have their own tour bus one day? Probably not, or whatever it is, but that's not necessarily the goal. The way it is now is I definitely feel like I'm in the building stage, and every tour just gets a little bit better, and certain things are different and more logistically sound and go smoother. And of course, there's things on the road that you can't fix. Flights get delayed, trains get, stopped, whatever it is. And you just kind of roll with it. But, one tour at a time, I think is how we're taking it.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Bottom of the Bill. This week we are joined with Melody in the building. How you doing, Mel? She doesn't feel like talking right now. What's up, Chris? How you doing?
Chilling.
Yeah.
Doing well. I'll say slightly more than Melody.
Yeah, I'm fucking tired today, dude.
Yeah, we played last night, and it was an early gig, but it's still just 4-hour gigs. It doesn't matter what time they are. They just wipe you out.
Yeah.
It was fun, though. It was good.
Cool. Anything interesting happened this week that you want to talk about?
Pretty chill week. The EP dropped last night at midnight. So the Alchematic EP is live and in the world. Got some finishing touches for like the Spotify stuff to put out on that. But then we turn around and play this weekend. It's been just a ton of rehearsals and everything. Between the EP show, we did rhythm section on Sunday, harmony rehearsal Tuesday or Wednesday. Full band is tomorrow morning. And then Patsy's is coming out of hiatus and playing a festival in Palatka. So we had 2 rehearsals for that. And then we were on the news yesterday morning. So it's just been a busy week of rehearsing more than anything. We had 5 rehearsals this week and a news appearance. So
Damn.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. The news is fun. Playing for those guys, it's funny. In any industry at any level, people are still just people. It's so funny. It is like it on camera, they are clean, everything's running, it's super efficient, it's great. Then you get back there and they're all just like us in the band, just kind of like, talking smack, running around, getting there. They're like, wait, do we have this? Let's go get it. And running around, it's like, oh yeah, these are our people.
Yeah.
In production, everyone is the same.
Yeah.
We're all equals.
I feel like everything, there's always this thing where people get so worried about last minute things happening, but even at the highest levels, like everything still gets down to the wire.
Just being able to roll with it is key. I forget the one of the host names yesterday, but even KP just made a note of how like well he was rolling with stuff. Like not even in our segment and our performance and stuff, we'd see him on the other set and like we're watching the feed and like something happens and he just rolls with it, makes a joke and goes on with it. We're like, yep, he's improvising just like the rest of us. It's all music.
Yeah.
But that was fun. You can actually go see some of those videos on the First Coast Living set. We did a Patsy tune and one of the originals that we have for Patsy's, so that was fun. Then we're playing both these bands are playing this weekend. It's going to be good music. So
hell yeah.
Other than that, it's been chill. It's just been making sure I got all these tunes down and everything arranged and stuff like that. So kind of not boring, but not an action-packed week. It's very just like a technical, get everything in line, get it ready to roll.
Yeah.
What about you? You do anything crazy?
Not really. We were supposed to. We have a gig coming up November 14th at Jack Rabbit's with Baked Shrimp. I'm playing. Put together a really fun band with Brandon Howell on drums, Aaron Thorla on keys, and Kevin Ramos on bass.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a really fun show. We got some cool tunes we're working up. We were supposed to rehearse this week, but wasn't able to happen. So we're going to try and get some rehearsals in before I go to LA next week. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was really it. I'm just focusing on shedding those tunes. And
getting because it's been pretty much just cover stuff for a hot second. So this is kind of, even though these are cover tunes, it's like a more specialized.
Yeah, we get to do like, everyone kind of, well, I mean, Brandon picked a song. I picked a bunch of tunes. I know Kevin's talking about throwing one in the hat. And so I think with this, it's fun because, it's been a lot of cover gigs and just trying to figure out what's next since Side Hustle broke up. And this is just going to be a fun thing to like songs to play that I've never had the opportunity to like play before. Mm-hmm. Get to play with people outside of Kevin. I don't really get to play with Aaron or Brandon very often.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm excited about that. It's going to be fun. Tickets will be on sale. I'll be posting links and stuff in the description, and it'll be a really great show. And Baked Shrimp is an awesome band. We just had Jared on the podcast. Yeah. That episode will be dropping before the show, so you guys can check out that, and also Baked Shrimp because they're a lot of fun. They're a really great band.
Yeah.
So jam band from Long Island. So yeah, man, that's what's been going on. And then now the moment that everyone's been waiting for. Drum roll. We've got Mark Lettieri on the podcast this week, guys, which is super big for us. It was amazing to talk to him. I mean, what a musical mind and genius, but also super down to earth and like just willing to have a conversation, which is it's awesome, man. You never know. Sometimes with like super talented artists, it's like it can go one way or the other. Sometimes you don't know if it's like they're gonna be like, talking to a wall because there's so much going on in here. Or if it's, they could be super eccentric. But Mark was awesome. He was a really cool dude.
Yep. Just a dude that plays guitar real good.
Yeah, exactly. And we have the bucket right here that we're going to be drawing a name from. So thank you to everybody who entered first. It means a lot to us that you guys tuned in and that you were interested enough in what we're doing to participate. And big shout out to Ace Music Products, Strings by Aurora, and Carmadon for donating a bunch of awesome stuff for this. It's always a pleasure to work with anybody that wants to help us grow this thing. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and pick the winner right now. Another drum roll, Chris. Melody's freaking out.
It's too much stuff.
We have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of people that entered this competition.
It makes the Kill Tony bucket pull look like scraps.
Really, though, honestly. Matt, tell your boy to step it up. Okay. And the winner is Chris Pruitt.
Yeah. Cool.
Hell yeah. Awesome, Chris. Well, we're going to go ahead and we'll link up with you to get your information and send you this awesome care package that we got from all these amazing companies. So thank you again for entering. Thank you for everybody who participated. It means a lot to us. And without further ado, the legend, Mark Lettieri. This is Bottom of the Bill. Mark,
cool.
Thanks so much for being with us today, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, dude. Looking forward to it.
We've both been listening to the Out by Midnight album. Congratulations on releasing that. And
thanks, man.
Yeah, man. Really been enjoying it. It's pretty cool that you guys are able to perform such high-level music in a live setting and then put it out as a record and not have to worry about, like, messing up or putting out like a subpar performance. I'm curious, are you guys?
Well, it's definitely not perfect.
Well, that's the beauty of the live element, I
hope so.
It's been awesome, man. Did you guys do all that in one night, or is it like a compilation of a few different nights?
It was recorded over 2 nights. The majority of the songs are for the second night.
Okay.
I think there's maybe 3 of the 14. Well, I'd have to go back and look, but I remember most of it being from the second night. And, I figured that was kind of going to happen because, first night jitters or whatever. And the second night you kind of relax and just play more like you're playing a show rather than thinking about you're making a recording. I personally don't really like doing live recordings specifically for that reason. I don't like that added pressure, but I understand it's necessary. And of course, I've always just wanted a great recording of that ensemble, so I had to just kind of suck it up and do it.
Well, it seems that there's elements of it that are improvised. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the solo sections are all improvised. I mean the songs we're playing the songs as written, but there's always improvisation during the solos, and then in certain sections where we'll kind of jam or elongate things and kind of explore different sonic territories, so to speak.
And how do you find that dynamic to work, I guess, in a live album setting versus like a studio setting? Do you find that it's easier to do the improv stuff when you're going live, or do you want to go to like a more composed approach when you're in the studio versus live?
Generally speaking, yes. The studio versions of the songs are pretty specifically arranged. There's extra parts, of course. There's overdubs and things like that, but the core of the compositions don't change. And so as long as we're putting that forth primarily, then we kind of just let the mood of the evening take the song where it needs to go in terms of improvisation. So really my goal is just, even when I go to make an album, is just to try to have the coolest material I can. And then if the material is good, it'll work in a live context or a studio context or as a trio or as a quartet or a quintet or, maybe even a solo guitar, who knows? So that's my goal, is that if I feel like the material is solid, then it'll manifest itself how it's supposed to in the studio, and then again in the live realm. And the band is really good at taking the music different places, kind of depending on where it needs to go on each night. So
yeah. Totally. Are you writing with these guys that you're playing live with, or is it like a different lineup on the sessions, or how does that work?
Yeah, no, the music is all written by me, and then it's recorded with a fair, I guess spanning 7 or so records that we encompassed on that. There's a few different rhythm sections and different players that contributed to the studio records, but the core drum and bass section of Wes Stevenson and Jason Thomas have been with me since the beginning. So they've played on every record, even if they're not on every song necessarily. But they've played on every record, and they've played the majority of my gigs. And so having Daniel, the keyboard player, Daniel Porter, brought in, he's kind of the newest guy. He hasn't played on a studio record of mine yet. So he's kind of having to approximate and interpret all the different keyboard parts that I've had other players play over the years. But he does a great job at it, so it's really great to have him a part of that to kind of fill out the sound. So.
Yeah, man. It's interesting to me when I hear about musicians that are able to kind of play with the same lineup that they've been working with for so long. Do you think that there's something about... well, let me phrase it this way. Is there something that you do outside of like just the music, where you guys obviously connect so well on? Is there something that you do as like, a facilitator of the thing that keeps people kind of wanting to keep working in this situation? Because it's hard, right? I mean, like gigs come and go, and things can get flaky, and there's egos that can clash. Just curious as to how you manage all that stuff.
Sure. Well, I mean, we're friends first, so that kind of always comes before maybe the employee-employer relationship, I guess. Right. But at the end of the day, technically I'm a solo artist. And so, I call who I want to play with, and hopefully they're available. I mean, that's kind of how it is, Right. I mean, I have the guys that I really like, and I'm grateful that they like to play the records and to do the tours. And, I facilitate the business aspect as best and as professionally and as thoroughly as I can, to hopes that they will want to continue to keep playing, and hopefully it's worth their time, But I also try to make sure that musically they feel like they can express themselves. I mean, I know it's not quote unquote their music, but they've certainly put their foot in it and interpreted it. And obviously, yes, they've contributed to the studio recording. So in a sense, it is kind of their music too, even if maybe they didn't write the songs. But I guess I'm just grateful that they still want to do it after all these years. I mean, because Wes and JT specifically have been on gigs where there was nobody there and we weren't making any money, and then it was just kind of what it was. And now it's a little bit more professional, and we're getting a little more taken care of. And it's not where I want it to be, but it's getting there. So I have to respect that they've given their time and efforts to it. So,
yeah. So when you say that it's not where you want it to be, that's definitely a very relatable thing for most musicians, I think. And then it's funny because people that are at a certain level might look at where you're at and be like, holy shit, like what a dream. And then I'm sure you have people that you look at where you're like, man, that must be like everything. What to you is like the scenario where you'd be like, oh man, I'm happy. Like, this is where I want to be resting at.
Right. Well, I guess I should maybe preface that by saying that I don't take anything for granted, and I don't feel like I'm not grateful or anything. I'm very grateful for where I am in my career, of course. But if you don't continue to make goals, then you won't proceed. You might as well just stop where you are. So I want to have. I would like the sort of like touring aspect of my thing to kind of grow and blossom a little bit, maybe be more comfortable. I don't have a tour bus. I don't have a sound person. I barely have a tour manager. Oh, man. I'm grateful that she is still wanting to work with us, because she normally tours with people who do giant stadium pop tours with giant stadium pop budgets, and I don't have that, So my goal is to play the music I want to play with the people I care about and take care of them the best I absolutely can. And I know we can do, but you can always do better, Now, will everyone have their own tour bus one day? Probably not, or whatever it is. But that's not necessarily the goal. It just the way it is now is I definitely feel like I'm in the building stage, and every tour just gets a little bit better, and certain things are different and more logistically sound and go smoother. And of course, there's things on the road that you can't fix. Flights get delayed, trains get stopped, whatever it is, and you just kind of roll with it. But one tour at a time, I think, is how we're taking it.
Yeah, man. Well, it's cool. I'm sure it helps like everybody that's involved when they see the growth. I feel like there's, musicians can be, and anybody really working in the industry, I feel like kind of has this thing where people are willing to kind of offset some of their needs or whatever if they see the overall picture, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like if you're doing stuff and like musically, especially if you believe in it, then you're going out and you might be taking some hits here and there, but like you're seeing small growth over time. That's definitely that can be very reaffirming, I guess, for everybody involved.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the case with anybody that's done their own project or written their own songs or anything. And I think, the people that I play with primarily have all at one point led their own thing or done their own sort of artistic thing that is uniquely theirs that they are in charge of. Right. So they kind of all understand. I mean, Snarky Puppy, for example, is a band full of band leaders. basically. And so we all kind of get it. Like everyone at that point, by now, I think almost everyone in the band has done their own record or something. You know, even before the band was taken off, guys had their own. I had my own band. Chris McQueen had his own band. You know, a lot of people had their own projects that were trying to make happen. So we all understood kind of the struggle of it. But you know, at the end of the day, like, it's my responsibility to take care of people. So I do the best I can. And, you know, ultimately, if the whole thing fails, I fail the worst because I mean, plenty of times I pay people even if I don't make money. You know, that's just how it is.
That's the burden.
That's just the game. That's the ball game, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm curious also because I like this idea of setting goals. I think it's just kind of like, you know, the standard for any business that's trying to grow and operate. Like having small goals and then, you know, to hopefully obtain your bigger goals and objectives. Are there like any examples? Because, you know, obviously, again, like wanting to keep growing from where you're at right now, what are some examples of things you might do, like I guess just levels that you might set that you want to reach for the next time around and how you plan on getting to those points?
Totally. Great question. Well, the plan is to kind of keep doing what I'm doing. There's not too many changes necessarily or drastic changes that would alter things. It's really just you just keep building and building and repeating. You know, we tour a lot overseas, for example, in Europe, etc. I would love to have a way to drive ourselves around from gig to gig with our own gear. You know, that might sound like a crazy thing to ask, but we don't do that. We get on planes every day, we get on trains, and we use backline, right? So every day we're plugging into different amps, we're setting up different drum sets and hoping it's cool. You know, I would love to have a bus with a trailer, with a crew that helps us put all our stuff that we know is the same night to night, like a real band, right?
Right.
And you know, and we'll get there. I'll get there. It's at some point. You know, I'd love to be able to tour that way in the States too. You know, currently it's all finances. To be honest, if we're talking like two dudes being real about the music business, you know, if I have a bigger budget, I could travel the way we want to travel with the gear we want to have, stay in the places we would like to stay in. You know, thankfully I get to play really great venues. You know, I feel like I'm at a point now where, you know, we're playing good rooms, nice rooms that have good staff and good sound equipment, and the crowds are coming, and that's all great. And so you just keep doing it over and over again.
It's like beating a dead horse until it
wakes up, you know, the horse isn't dead. You just keep feeding it water and carrots and whatever else, and get on to the next trail, man.
Right.
So,
when you're going to these venues and you're, I'm gonna nerd. This is the kind of stuff like we'll get back to the music stuff. I nerd out on this, on like the behind the scenes stuff so much because I've had to run my own bands at such a low level and had to just like squeeze something out of nothing.
It's a good name. You got a good name for your podcast. I've definitely been the bottom of the bill many times. Mike. I still am. You know, Puppet Show and Mark Lettieri group. You know? Like the quote, Spinal Tap.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're going to these venues and you're doing the backline, like you're getting the backline stuff and you're not bringing your own gear, this is stuff that ultimately kind of also eats into your overhead, right? So like because you're having to rent stuff from places or
yeah,
it
can. I mean, it sort of depends on the situation. In Europe, venues are more likely to include backline as part of the deal, or the venues have them just because that's just the way it is over there. It's just they're just used to backlining gigs, and so it's either worked into the deal as part of your advance or they have house backline. In the United States, that's maybe 50-50. You know, well, we don't have backline, we don't bring it in. Here's where you can park a trailer.
Right.
You know, we've all been there too, right? And so, yeah, I mean, heck, there was the Lettieri group did a tour back in the spring. I think it was 21, and it was a great tour. It was fun. We played a lot of nice shows and good crowds. But like, we were able to rent a drum set, but we had to put it in different cases so that we could fit it in the back of the Suburban that I rented. Because I didn't want to do a trailer because we were playing like in big cities. And parking and it's just not
nightmare. Yeah,
I don't need that kind of stress in my life. Yeah. So we rented a Suburban. We had a keyboard, we had a bass amp, we had the drums, and then I just borrowed guitar amps at every gig. I either borrowed them from a friend in town, or the venue luckily had one, and that's how we rolled. You know, lean and mean, man.
Yeah, lean
Those
and
Suburbans
mean.
are nice. They go fast. And somebody might hearing this would be like, "Well, why did you do that? That's silly." And that's what worked. That's what worked for us. That's what worked for the budget. That's what worked for the situation. So, you know,
I mean,
try parking a trailer in Times Square.
That's the thing, right? It's like when you're driving yourself, these are all things that are like you have to take into account.
Yeah.
You know, because like
playing guitar is the last thing on my mind.
That's so true, and it's so annoying that it has to be that way. But it is what it is, and you make it work.
It is what it is.
It's a labor of love for a long time. But you know, because we had a GMC van that we took around up until it just broke down and the band ended up breaking up. But but we had a GMC van that we took around for a long time, and we didn't do any trailers or anything like that. We just stacked the PA in the car or in the van with all of our stuff. Yeah. We were really slumming it, dude. I mean, we had like bar gigs in Charlotte, North Carolina type shit, you know, just trying to figure out how to tour, you know. But yeah, so we would do that kind of stuff, and then like you're saying, you pull up to a venue, and then it's like, well, there's no designated parking, so you have to try and do that, and it's like, well, you know, we get here 2 hours before showtime. We need an hour to sound check before you open the doors, and then we have an hour to hopefully like unload all of our stuff, find parking, get merchandise set up. That way we can be done with that, and then think about sound check, and then get ourselves into a space to play a show. And
exactly.
So yeah, like to me, driving and like doing that in a Suburban makes way more sense than doing a whole trailer in a van and the whole thing, because again, like you have X amount of time, and when you're in a place like New York or any big city, trying to find parking is just insane, you know?
Yeah. I mean, my friend, great guitar player, Greg Koch. I don't know if you know him.
Oh yeah.
Unbelievable. One of the baddest dudes on the planet. He played the same room maybe a couple weeks later, and they drive a trailer, and they parked it at some friend's house in like Long Island or something, and then just like used the back line at the venue. So it's like there's ways around it, you know, and maybe we'll succumb to the trailer life. But you know, I guess it's just maybe my personality. Like I'll sacrifice my personal sound preferences and whatever, as long as everyone else in the band can hopefully have what they want. So. You know, but it lucked out because some of the venues, you know, the Iridium, for example, where we played, they do have nice backlines. So thank God for the Iridium. But then, you know, some of the other towns, lucky I have friends that have nice amps. They were able to bring to the shows for me, you know.
Well, you've probably built up quite a network at this point around the country, especially in the bigger cities.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. And I had some help from an endorser. Paul Reed Smith was able to ship a couple things out, but of course they can't ship that all the place. You know, we lucked out because they had a sales rep in one of the territories, and he was able to bring something. But the other ones, it's like, hey man, I'm calling former Skype students and things. It's like, I think I may have even put something out on Facebook. Like, does anybody have a 60-watt tube clean amp? I don't give a crap what it is. Just bring it, please. Man, tickets. I'll buy you a beer. You know.
Talk about an exercise in humility for a minute. You know.
Well, you know.
All right, guys, this episode's brought to you by Best Buds CBD Store. If you're like me, maybe THC isn't always the right high for you, or maybe the legal status of THC has you a bit hesitant to indulge. So at Best Buds CBD Store, they have an array of CBD and Delta 8 THC products. These guys truly care about their service, so everything is meticulously sourced and prepared to deliver a top-notch product and experience. If you head to their website, you'll find all kinds of educational information regarding Delta THC and CBD. Not to mention, if you use promo code BotB Pod, that's BOTB Pod, you'll save 10% on your order. This is not a one-time deal. If you use promo code BotBPod, every time you place an order with Best Buds, it will give you 10% off. That's in perpetuity, forever. So head over to bestbudscbdstore.com and start saving on all of your CBD and Delta 8 products. Enjoy, guys.
For me, if I get so scattered before shows, if I'm the one doing everything and worry about every little part, that when it comes to be showtime, it's very hard for me to clear my head and not think about all the details. Even while we're playing, you're looking at how many people are in the room, is a bar selling, all those things. So you must have the music to so under your fingers and in your head that or you're just able to clear your head totally and get into that space when it's showtime. What are you doing to kind of help you clear your head before you get on to to perform?
Yeah, well, it's a combination of both. I mean, I definitely know my own songs pretty well most of the time. It's funny. JT probably knows them better than anybody. He'll correct me often, and he's always right.
Drummers have a
which
habit
is great.
of that.
He's kind of like the MD or something. I don't know. Yeah, drummers have a hat. Well, some drummers.
Yeah,
he does definitely. But so I feel comfortable about the music, thankfully, and I practice a lot before I go on tour. I shouldn't say a lot, but we don't really rehearse necessarily unless there's a couple new tunes I want to throw in or old songs we haven't played in a lot. We might meet one afternoon and jam for 2 hours and that's it or something. But I definitely go through what I want to play here at home and get it together so that I don't have to think about it when I'm on the road. And then usually, it's a couple minutes in the green room warming up, and then I look at the set list just to remember what I put first, and then and then we go play. But yeah, it's a lot of running around, getting in there and if if I don't have a tour manager with me, then I'm setting up the merch and making sure everybody's, backline, whatever it is, the situation there is that night, making sure that it's set up and good to go and, learning the sound person's name and the front of house person's name and all that stuff and making sure that the catering is, or whatever we're eating is, we have time to do that. I think that's probably the one thing that's mostly on my mind is planning dinner.
Yeah.
It's well, if we get in at 2, it's going to take us an hour to set up. Our sound checks are quick. I mean, we maybe check for 30, 40 minutes.
Really?
So we get set up, we run through a couple tunes. The band, we kind of mix ourselves. We sort of know the tunes, we can play to a room really well. And so most sound crews don't have to do a lot of work with us. And so sound checks go quick, and then I'm thinking okay, that leaves 2 hours. Do we want to go back to the hotel? Do the guys want to order in? Do we have, is there a place next door we can go eat? And there's all these sort of things. Having a tour manager helps a lot. In Europe, those decisions are not mine. I just go when do we play?
Yeah.
I can kind of turn my brain off a little bit. So as the logistics and the finances get better stateside, I will. That's probably the next piece of the puzzle. Is a TM for the States, and then probably a sound person, and then I'm probably gonna need a trailer, or I'd like one of those sprinters. Those are pretty cool. I'm kind of surprised that they haven't designed something that's kind of that isn't that big, but isn't as small as a Suburban,
Yeah.
They need a halfway, a cargo thing with good seats, but not a million seats.
Right.
Yeah.
So that way you don't have to.
Toyota, if you're listening, Elon,
Yeah.
whoever, SpaceX, you want to build one of these things?
Yeah.
I think that would be great.
Yeah. That way you don't have to do so much kind of refurbishing after the fact. You gotta a lot of the time you have to go in there and take seats out, and then people will build these whole things out. It becomes a mission where it's if there was something there was less work going into it on the front end to make it travelable.
Well, what they should make the Ford, and we're getting really into the weeds here. I'm sorry.
I love it.
Audience is this guy, I don't want to talk to this dude anymore. The Ford Transit 15 passenger, great ride. It's a good ride. If they made a version that had like 2/3 the amount of seats and the back was solid with no windows, like a cargo space.
Yeah.
You could put a 4 or 5 piece band in there, no problem, and it would be great.
Yeah.
Because when we did a tour, my band, 4-piece, just the 4 of us in California, and we had a transit, and we just took 2 seats out, and everything fit great. But you know, you have the windows there, so it's like kind of a security risk. So we had like blankets and whatever. But like, if they had a transit that was 2/3 passenger, 1/3 solid blocked off cargo,
that would be.
I would buy one probably, and then it might be kind of expensive, so maybe I won't.
Yeah.
But I would rent one
You
for
rent
a band
one.
to go.
Yeah.
You know. So Ford,
Yeah.
come on with it, man.
My friend has one of those transits. He uses it mostly for like bar gigs though, but he like has these like super heavy duty road cases that he uses for everything with his whole PA, and like he stacks that to the brim, and then he still has room like towards the front for whatever else he needs. So it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, they're super
There's
heavy
definitely
duty.
a way. Man, it'd be super awesome if like maybe one day if I end up with just like Guns N' Roses money, like I'm gonna start a car company that builds traveling vehicles for bands on the run. You know, that's what I'm gonna do with my money, I think.
Well, I wonder what the market share is for
I don't
for
know.
touring.
We'll put U-Haul out of business. And so, 'cause no one will rent trailers anymore. So that we
There
can
you
get all
go.
those folks can rent vans from you know,
Fucking
Lettieri vans.
at Lettieri vans. U-Haul has taken so much of my money over the years. I will
Oh,
say,
man.
all the
Yeah.
trailers I've rented from them.
Oh boy.
What do you say, Chris?
I was going to say not to be confused with your shoe line and Lettieri vans, but
Oh right. Rent a van, get a free pair of vans.
Are you? Go ahead, Chris.
no.
Mark, are you into like skating and stuff like that?
Man, I was never a skater.
No.
No, I was. It was a thing though growing up. You know, I'm old enough to remember when Tony Hawk, like, you know,
Landed
hit
the
the
900.
900 or
Yeah,
whatever,
dude.
like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and all that. And yeah, I grew up in California, so of course skating was big. But no, I was into more traditional sports like soccer and track and field and stuff like that.
I was gonna say are you still like working out and stuff? You look like you're pretty in shape.
Oh, thanks. I do. Yeah, I ride. I got into cycling semi-seriously, and so I ride a couple days a week.
Okay.
I actually was on a ride this morning and got a flat tire and realized I didn't bring my CO2 cartridge, so I had to call my wife to come pick me up.
Oh man, that's
She's great. She's like, I'll be right over. You know.
what. How do you maintain that lifestyle when you're touring and you know in the midst of all the music stuff? Working out is a lifestyle in itself. You know.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't consider myself like some kind of a fitness freak where I'm sort of addicted to going to the gym or anything like that. And I worked out so much in my teens and 20s. Like, I ran track all through college every day. You know, I still have PTSD from
Really?
from that. Not really, but I mean that was intense. That was the most intense athletic experience ever. You know, training for that. And so I'm kind of just like, okay, cool. I don't think I need to get back to that ever again. You know.
Yeah.
But I ride my bike here at home, and then I have like different like plyometric circuit. I think they call them HIIT workouts or something that I'll do. In the hotel or in the green room or just find a quiet place outside the venue and do it. You know, a lot of the guys in the band are into tennis now.
Okay.
In Snarky Puppy, I mean, a couple of the guys, and they play every day. You know, they're really into it. Some of the guys like to run. I don't like jogging. It's awful. I would prefer to do like a very intense 30-minute or 20-minute workout in one place and just be done with it and not be running around all day.
Yeah.
So
I feel
that's
that.
kind of what I do. And if there's a hotel gym or something, I might get in there, but I can't bring the bike on tour, unfortunately.
Right. Not at this point, anyways. I'm sure once you get that tour bus money, you start bringing in whatever you want.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
instead of towing behind a sports car, you're towing behind a cycle.
Just a whole car full of bikes like the Tour de France. Be awesome.
Yeah. So what kind of gear you guys traveling around back there? It's like, no, those are bikes,
like,
dude.
Treks, you know. Right.
Yeah, man. It's I'm so something that I try and like. This is kind of a weird thing, but I'm just wondering if I'm alone in this because I kind of been working out a lot over the last few months for a lot of different reasons. But what I notice is that if I work out like really heavy over the course of time, like my playing, I feel like gets like my fingers don't move as easy as they should. Do you ever notice that? And have you ever been like desensitized and working out because of it?
I've never had that issue. You probably just need to stretch.
Yeah, probably.
Guys who lift real heavy, their backs are probably really tight.
Yeah.
And if your back is tight, your whole body's going to be tight.
Right.
So I would just spend, you can keep lifting heavy as long as you're really hydrated and stretching and getting proper like recovery days and stuff like that. Because then, otherwise, your whole body just turns into you look huge, but you can't put on a shirt. Yeah. So it's a balance,
Yeah, I've also been doing like martial arts and stuff, which just like
oh cool. That'll probably screw up your hands pretty good.
Yeah, dude.
Unfortunately, I would love to know how to do that, but
yeah, I have to be very careful with it. I tell the people like my coaches and stuff. I tell them like I can't spar hard. I can't do anything because I've seen guys going at it at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Monday and break their nose. I'm just like, dude, I'm not doing that.
Well, you hit it. I mean, you break your wrist. Then what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Luckily, so. I mean, I'm pretty good at with the wraps, and like I've gotten to a point where like I know how to throw. Like if I'm just working the bag, it's one thing. It's risky when you're sparring for sure. So I try not to do that too often. But I take very good care of my stuff because I play for a living, so I can't afford to get
you gotta
hurt.
be careful.
I was gonna say you're one punch away from a barista job.
Yeah, I've got 0 college degree to fall back on, so that's literally the reality.
Man. Why did he pick barista job though? I like baristas. They make great coffee.
Mark, you went to school for marketing, right?
Yeah, I was an advertising major.
This is wild to me, okay, because you have a sports background through your youth into college, and then you went to school for marketing and advertising. Where did you find the time to be such a ridiculously accomplished guitar player?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I've gotten it a fair amount. I guess it's just a matter of time management, maybe.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, as with anything, certain things, quote unquote, may have. I don't want to say suffered. That's not really the word, but your passions will make room for themselves, even if you can't quantify how they do. I guess I've always been able to handle a heavy workload. That's just been how I've always been able to operate. I don't know if that's by how I was raised or genetics or what. I don't know how you quantify that, but I guess I'm just always used to having a lot on my plate, maybe. But in college, could I have studied a little harder for certain things instead of playing the guitar? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But like I said, I mean, it just sort of makes room for itself. And I think with music, as long as you're nurturing it a little bit every day, maybe some days more than others, I think that it all just depends on your personality and how much practice you can handle and how much makes sense to you. I don't think I could concentrate for 10 hours a day playing the guitar. Like, you hear about these, in college, I practiced for 9 hours every day and all that. Like, I couldn't do that. Even if I had time to do that, I don't think my brain would allow me to do that.
Yeah.
And so anytime I felt inspired to play, I played. And then when it was time to get an essay done or go to track practice or whatever it was, I just did that. And you just kind of, work out the schedule day by day, week by week, kind of what makes sense. And, bite off as much as you can chew, but not so much that things are suffering severely.
Right.
I remember there was like, and I towed the line a couple times in college. I remember like I had a band. Oh gosh, what happened? Yeah, we had this band. It was just in the fall, so I didn't have a meet, but we went down to a friend's studio for the weekend to like make a demo or something. And of course stuff ran long. And so we spent the night Sunday night, left Monday morning. I think I just didn't go to class, and then like was kind of late for track practice, which that I was more worried about than missing class.
Yeah, of course.
And so I wouldn't recommend doing that, but that was sometimes things that I would do, And like I said, your passion will make room. Maybe not always at the best times.
Right.
But, and heck, I probably could have practiced more guitar, but I am what I am now. I'm where I am because of what I did. So who knows? Maybe I did something right. Maybe I did something wrong along the way. I don't know. I don't know if that's the right answer for any of this question, but
no,
that's what I got for you.
No, 100% is, man, because I think it's fascinating because I think that I know that the congratulatory stuff or whatever it can be uncomfortable for people, but I'm gonna go ahead and kind of just say it this way. I think that you and a lot of guys kind of in your camp have established a certain level for a lot of guitar players in the next generation coming up, and you certainly pushed the envelope that was existing before you guys. So to understand what, especially you having other passions or things that you were interested in that you pursued, it's interesting for me and other people of my generation and later that to understand like how you were able to kind of focus and make and be so influential, So I think it's just
thanks, man.
Yeah, it's wild to me. And do you pull from the marketing background that you have in your current endeavors?
I think so. I try to be aware of how I'm not portraying myself. That's not the right word, but I am aware of how I'm promoting myself and the music that I make and the bands that I work with and sort of the message that I'm trying to convey with my brand, so to speak. There's
right.
the B word,
right? Yeah.
Whatever the Mark Lettieri brand is. I mean, it's the music that I make. It might be a little bit of humor or something like that. It's a combination of those things. And I think about that a lot. I very particular when it comes to reading press releases that have been written about me, or bios or something like that, or checking out layouts for graphics. Just little things that I picked up from studying that stuff in school. And a lot of it is just like interpersonal stuff, learning how to manage people and work with a team and be a team leader and be a team member. And that's all stuff we talked about in school too, And I had an internship in a PR firm where I, had to work with people that were very experienced and telling me what to do and all that. And it's, even though I don't work in that realm at all, I mean, it was still a professional experience where I was being held accountable for certain things. And I transfer that into running my business as a guitar player because, they call it the music business for a reason.
Yeah. I mean,
so
it's also interesting to me because I've struggled with like trying to understand how to manage people, manage myself, manage especially when it comes to releasing content on social media, like what to capture, how you release it, and what you want to try and communicate. Because everything you want to be communicating something. You don't want it to just be random stuff, out there, right?
Yeah.
So it's like just finding the time to go through everything and editing things and putting it on, and then you got to still make time to write and practice and be in a band, right? So it's like so much.
Yeah.
I feel
well, what I've done, it is a lot, and you bring up a good point, and I'll say this: I mean, we do live in sort of a content-driven business, and you just have to be mindful and aware of like how to generate that content without doing the most work.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if you played a gig, somebody filmed it, find that person, get the video, you know, or repost whatever they tag, or like maybe you're working on something at the house practicing, film it for 15 seconds, whatever.
Right.
Maybe something funny happened, talk about it for 15. You know, there's ways to do it where it doesn't always have to be a big production.
Right.
And I think I've kind of gotten into that because when I first started getting involved in social media content, like not that anything I ever did was a big production, because I'm definitely not on that level, but I definitely spent more time on it maybe than I do now. So all this to say, it's kind of a balance. Like every now and then you got to drop the big bombs with the lights and the cameras and the action and everything.
Right.
And then in
right.
between all that, you know, you leave the little skittles along the way. Which is why I was so grateful that we were able to film this Iridium gig, because now I have 13 YouTube videos in the can.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And then you can clip up all that stuff. Yeah, every song has like a bunch
of... This one's just 50 seconds of a bass groove.
Exactly.
This is the guitar solo from that. This is the drum groove from that, you know. And until people get tired of seeing it, you know. But then you spread it out so they don't get tired of it. Or you do, you know, you post a video from the Iridium and then you post a video of yourself playing with a giant guitar pick. And like, of course, the video with the giant guitar pick has 80 bajillion views, and the video from the Iridium has like 5.
Always.
You know?
Right, that's how it goes.
So what am I doing with my life? You know?
I love that pick video. It's like, wow, this sucks. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Well, I sent it to, I love those. They're friends of mine. And I was like, I don't want to offend them, but if I know these guys, they take the piss better than anybody. So I'm going to, I was like, I sent them the video first. They're like, this is brilliant. Post it. Okay.
It's so good, bro. It's fun. Chris and I both are very into, you know, I really like what the comedians are doing right now. They've seemed to kind of figured out social media and the internet in a way. So kind of building on what you're talking about, like having content in the can, you know, when you have 13 new videos from a show that you did, now you also have like a bunch of stuff that you can clip down. Comedians have been doing this now for a long time, where they take their specials, they clip them down, they put all the text there, and it's like just following that kind of a model. It seems to be pretty effective, you know.
I think so, and I follow a lot of comedians on social media, and I wondered though, because, and I guess, you know, if you clip a joke from a routine and put it on Instagram, well, what happens if you hear the joke again?
Yeah.
You know, like, is it still fun? I mean, I guess it's still funny. Like if I go see your show and you tell the same joke, I'll probably still laugh, but I'm probably not going to laugh as hard as I did the first time I heard it on Instagram.
Totally.
But if I clip out a guitar solo, you come see the gig, it's going to be a different guitar solo.
Yeah, that's definitely the advantage that we have, I think.
I don't know. The comedians it's a hard job, man. Oh my gosh. I wish I could do that. I would love to do stand-up, but man, that's so hard.
Dude, we talk about it all the time. I can't, like, there's a weird admiration that goes both ways, because it's like, I've spoken to comedians that love the idea of playing music, and like also just the performance and the rock star kind of imagery that comes with it. But then from my end, and it sounds like from your end too, where you look at that and you're what they do, and you're like, dude, you have to pump out new shit like all the time. Like we can write a record and tour on that for a year, and that, or you know, maybe longer in some cases, and then we can like write a new record and still pull from old records, right? So it's like, and then throw in cover tunes as well. We can do covers in our sets and really build a whole thing. You have to write new shit at least every year. You have to be ready for another hour to go. And it's just, what an insane. And then if you're having a bad night, there's nothing, like, we can hide behind our instruments, right? We got a band that we're playing with that we can like lean on. If they're having a bad night, it's just them and a microphone, dude.
Well, I always thought it was, you know, it's like music is a hard life, but it's not as hard as acting or comedy. I mean, because like I could go play the guitar at a restaurant by myself and play and make some money and go home. You can't just go tell jokes in the corner of a restaurant while people are eating. Right. Like, and as background jokes, like they're background acting. You know what I mean? Like I can't show up to Ruth's Chris and recite Hamlet in the corner. But I can go play solo guitar. You know, God, that's got to be hard.
Yeah, we definitely have. I mean, like both sides, I think. I can't fathom that life, man. I have such respect for it, and I also just wish I could be that funny and that witty. I'm just not. So
yeah, well, man, bombing in front. I mean, I've bombed many of music performance in front of people, and that makes me feel terrible. So I can't imagine bombing a joke,
dude.
Although I've told some pretty crappy ones over the mic before, and it's usually in a foreign country where I had no business trying to make it's like, okay, 20% of the people speak English, and of those, 15% understand the humor that I'm trying to. So like, well, okay, on to the next. Tell me, why would you do that?
It's a real risk taker over here.
I know. What am I doing? Just putting my career in the trash.
Well, speaking on this like kind of comedy side of things, or not just integrating the two worlds. I'm really interested in how the Ground Up and the Wolf Camp have come to link up, because this is an amazing. I mean, talk about two entities that I've been looking at for years, even before Fearless Flyers or anything started.
Mm-hmm.
I've looked at you guys separately as like meccas for how you should run your enterprise, and then all of a sudden, the last few years, you guys are merging and doing this stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I think it was bound to happen, in some regard. I mean, there's been a lot of crossover with artists who weren't really a part of either, who then worked with both.
Okay.
Like Lewis Cole, for example, or oh gosh, who else? I know there's a million, but Jacob Collier, I think, has done some stuff. Maybe not, but anyway, there are loads of people that have kind of. Snarky's worked with them, Wolfpack's worked with them, etc. I think I'm the only guy that's actually in Snarky and then in a Wolf project.
Okay.
I think. Maybe. I think I might be the missing link between, I am the exact glue, perhaps.
I mean,
if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I'm trying.
I can't think of anybody else, but it makes sense, though, just by the way that you play, but also it's so crazy to think about also because, I mean, Ground Up, like this explorative journey of jazz fusion amalgamation, and then you have Wolfpack, which is like this kind of reimagined Motown funky soul kind of thing, but with this wildly DIY twist to it that Jack Stratton seems to have just really brilliantly and masterfully pulled off.
Yeah, he's a wild guy. He's got a real interesting perspective on the music business and how to promote and how to kind of build their very unique branding system. There's the B word again, but that is kind of what it is, it's pretty remarkable to see because it's pretty different than how Snarky's done it.
Totally,
both ways work. It's just they have a very specific way of doing it. I don't think I'll ever see Mike League wear shorts that short.
Yeah,
soccer shorts,
right?
But there's still time.
Yes,
he's been working out.
Okay, we'll get a good leg shot in the upcoming shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. How often does Fearless Flyers play out? Are you guys writing together? Is it someone bringing songs to the table and just reinterpreting them?
It's kind of both. Yeah, we don't play out very much. I mean, if you look at our schedule, we've maybe played like 10 shows or something.
Right.
And it's usually all festivals. This year we're doing 4 nights at the Blue Note in New York City, which will be kind of our first really set of club gigs. Excuse me. And then, so as far as the writing, everybody kind of brings in riffs or some stuff's kind of all the way composed. And we'll try that out or we'll come up with stuff in the studio or Jack will come in with an idea. It's pretty collaborative though, for the most part. You can, if you listen to the tunes, you can kind of tell which riffs may have come from me and which riffs may have come from Corey, for example.
Yeah, totally.
We're pretty different, but we have a way of gelling together on some stuff. So you're like, oh yeah, the bridge sounds like Mark, but the verse sounds like Corey,
Right.
So that would have, in that respect, we're always collaborating because it's a really fun group to bounce ideas off, and everyone's ideas are good. So
right.
It's amazing that the songs are so short. because we could have had a lot more ideas in some of those things. But
do you feel like is that like an intentional thing, like an exercise almost in trying to be
I think
reserved?
it was, yeah. And I I've told this story before, but going into the very first record, I had no idea what we were doing. I didn't know how the music was going to sound. I didn't know the direction for the music or the aesthetic or the flight suits or the guitars on the stands. Nate and I were pretty much completely in the dark until we got there.
Really?
Yeah. And so that's when I kind of understood. I was like, okay, so there's a look, first of all, and then there's a sound. And so then I was like, okay, I know how to operate in this. And then it made sense, and then it was comfortable. But I had some reservations going in just because, I was like, who are these people?
Right. So. That's why it's surprising that you would have not known, because I can totally sympathize with that when somebody asks you to be a part of a thing and then there's virtually little communication about what the thing actually is. So you walk in and you're like, there's already kind of this thing where you're like, well, this can't be good if there was no communication happening leading up to this. I have no idea.
Well, I mean, I remember, and Corey was the only guy. Like I knew Joe a little bit because we had played together in kind of like a super jam band kind of one-off gig together. So I knew him, but Corey was the guy that I was talking to via email, and he basically just had to be like, dude, just trust me, it's gonna be fine. Yeah. And even when I got there, as we were doing the first tune, which was Ace of Aces, I started realizing, I was like, okay, I know exactly what's going on right now. Like, I know how we're going to do these songs. And then even after the first day, I remember going to Nate and I'd be like, dude, that was like the quickest session I've ever done. Like, we were out of here in like 2 hours. We just wrote 4 songs, recorded them, and we're out of here, And so once I understood the vision for the project, it made a lot of sense. And I, even still, coming up with ideas for it is kind of hard for me because, my music, for example, is a lot longer than a minute and a half.
Right.
I like having arrangements and things like that. So I have to kind of really put the reins on sometimes.
But it's
bringing ideas in.
Yeah, man. Well, it seems like it'd be it seems like a good exercise on everyone's part, because then you got like Nate Smith, who, just does. He can do anything,
Sure.
And Joe Dart's kind of like, him and Corey Wong probably have more, at least what they portray, more of like a groove-based kind of playing. But then I've also seen them both do some pretty out there stuff as well.
Sure.
So for all you guys that are capable of all of such, of explorative stuff, for you to get together and write this simple, just groove-based funk is pretty cool to see,
Right on. Thanks. Yeah, it's definitely super fun.
Yeah, it looks that way.
It's a really fun band. We actually are playing this weekend in St. Louis, so I'm stoked to.
Where are you guys playing at?
The Baritone again. The Music at the Intersection Festival.
Okay.
I think it's in St. Louis. Yeah, it's like 2 days. Funny, ironically enough, Snarky Puppy is playing Saturday, and the Fearless Flyers are playing Sunday, but I'm not on the Snarky Puppy game.
Oh, you're not?
So I think I land in time to go see them, but I don't think I would get there in time to like sound check and play. So I'll be a fan. I'll just be side stage throwing sandwiches at them or something.
Oh, that's awesome, man. How did you discover the baritone stuff? 'Cause that's another interesting thing that you do for those who don't know.
Man, it started as just another piece of gear that I wanted to have as a session, part of my session sound. Just seemed like something I could use. And we had started using them a little bit in Snarky Puppy. Michael, I think, had bought one and started writing some songs on it. So Snarky had recorded maybe 1 or 2 songs with a baritone before. So I was aware of the instrument. I had used them in studios before. But it was really just kind of like a haphazard afternoon where I started just instinctively playing funk on it and like funk grooves. And I was like, well, this actually, wait a minute, hold on. What did I just do? And then it sort of started this whole kind of direction of baritone funk, as I like to call it. And I wrote a tune for Snarky Puppy, this bonus track called Hefe that was kind of based around the baritone and kind of this funk, swampy thing. And then I started posting more kind of these little baritone jams on Facebook. And that was back when Facebook didn't really have all those algorithm rules. And so stuff could go viral very quickly.
Right.
And I had one video that was just me just jamming in the key of D over kind of like a 4-on-the-floor Minneapolis drum groove. And it went viral, and people were like, what is this guitar? What is this sound? I've never heard this before. Or they were going like, that's a baritone, but why is he playing it like this? They were used to hearing it in country music or something.
Right.
And that made me think, oh, okay, I think I'm onto something here. And so I started making more videos and making more demos and just kind of turning it into a thing, and then started producing the records for it. And here we are.
It's it seems like such a natural arena for it to live in. I don't know if that's it, I'm sure that, it's like I listened to it and I'm sure it's been done before. Like I'm not taking credit for it. I mean, I remember hearing there's a song, I think I didn't even know it was a baritone guitar at the time, but there's a song by Joe Satriani called Luminous Flesh Giants or something like that. I don't know, but he had a rhythm guitar player on that record, this guy Andy Fairweather Lowe, and he's playing kind of this sort of funky, low-tuned thing, and I found out later that it was a baritone guitar, and so maybe that had kind of always been in the back of my mind or something, if I really am digging deep as to where this stuff came from. But really it was like, I love Prince, I love Parliament, I love Zapp and Roger. What happens if I play those grooves but with this instrument? I mean,
and so hence baritone funk. Yeah,
it's wild, man. It just listening to it just sounds so intuitive for the instrument. So you really kind of struck gold with that one. It seems like
struck something. Maybe not gold. Maybe like frankincense or myrrh, or copper, but nickel plating. It went aluminum, and the albums went aluminum in many countries. Aluminum, the aluminum records on my wall.
How closely are you paying attention to gear and stuff like that? Because I've had this conversation with some guitar players, like in different areas, and it seems to be something that maybe changes depending on what level you're working at in the industry. There's right now seems to be like people that I talk to in LA or in New York that seem to be very much on the Helix or the Fractal stuff for their pedals and solid state everything. But then you come maybe more to blue collar working towns like here in Jacksonville or smaller scenes where people are still kind of using more traditional pedal setups. How much are you paying attention to that kind of stuff, and do you have a preference for what you like to use?
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely aware of all of it. I have a Kemper. That's my choice in terms of modeling devices. Okay. I guess there's like Team Fractal and Team Kemper, whatever.
Yeah, for sure there is.
I'm used to the Kemper at this point, and so that is a big part of my home studio and a big part of just my studio work in general, just for ease of use, basically. It's sort of simple and, once you kind of learn how to use it. So it helps keep my workflow. It keeps the workflow smooth and I'll use plugins. Sometimes I use the Neural DSP plugin sometimes at my home studio. And then occasionally I'll put a pedal board into a Kemper, I think that's how I did the last Snarky Puppy record. All three guitar players were on Kempers.
Really?
With our pedal boards.
Yeah.
And then, but live gigs, if I can have an amp on stage, I love having an amp on stage. I like having more than one amp on stage if I can do that too. So I'm still traditional in that regard. And I love recording real amps all the time also. A lot of it depends on the project, depends on the sound I'm going for. For example, the Baritone funk records, the Baritone sessions are a combination of plugins and Kempers. But then, obviously, live at the Iridium is two loud-ass tube amps.
It's interesting.
So I use them all. It just depends on the application. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. It's interesting because like there's a tone that you get on the baritone sessions that I love, but then when you're live at the Iridium, it's like it goes back to this thing that we talk about a lot, where there's obviously a difference, but like there's also a way that just you play, I think, and the people in general play that communicates the sound that you want. So like this idea to me, I kind of started getting away from gear for a while because it started to be more apparent to me that I think most of what you get is going to be in your fingers just naturally. Like whatever you can get out of the instrument. Of course, there's going to be differences like, what single coils versus humbuckers or, P90s, whatever. And then all the differences in solid state versus tube. But at the end of the day, like if you listen to the Iridium stuff and the way that you play, the tone that you're getting, there's like a richness to it that still just kind of shines through whatever gear you're using, I feel like. Is there something there that you can kind of agree with, or do you think that that the gear has really mostly to do with it?
Well, thanks. I'm glad you think my fingers sound good. I'm working on it. But it just depends on the application. I think I sound like me no matter what I'm playing through.
Right.
And
right.
I don't mean that you're probably looking at all these guitars behind me, but like, why does he have all those? These are all tools to express different sides of what I want to say musically, right? And what I need to get done from a job perspective. But when I say I sound like me, like when I play a solo through a Kemper, it still sounds like Mark Lettieri.
Right.
Right. It versus if I play a solo through a Fender Twin or something like that, it's still gonna sound like Mark Lettieri at the end of the day. The transients and the ones and zeros are what's gonna be different.
Right.
But the overall feel and personality is gonna be there no matter what you use.
Right.
I played through Steve Lukather's rig at a Toto sound check, and I was like, oh man, I don't sound like Steve Lukather. Gee. I sound like me. Bummer, No. Dang. And any of my friends' rigs that are these great guitar player, I'm like, well, I still sound like myself, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So I can get I hear my personality no matter what I'm using, and that's just the way music is with human beings playing it. So for me, all the different gear is just tools for different applications. I think.
Yeah, I think that's. I
don't think the Mark Lettieri group will ever play like DI rigs.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear because I think that I truly believe that I think that the quality that you express, and this is just as a general thing, that people that when they play their instruments, they get too hung up on the gear sometimes. And I think that although that's important because you want to have quality gear and you're looking for a sound, but I think so much of it comes from, just artistically, like who you are, like whatever, at the end of the day, like whether you're playing, through a Fractal or a PV Bandit, it's like you can, like if you really know what you're doing, I think you can kind of get the quality that you're looking for, So I don't know.
I think so. I mean, you'll always come up. No, you make a good point, and I think you'll always come up against certain limitations that are just inherent in certain pieces of gear, and that's just kind of the way it is. Like if you were to hand me your guitar, for example, the action might be way too high for me.
Yeah.
And that's just, I would just have to kind of deal with it, right?
Are you a low action guy?
My view on gear is that I'm a very low action guy.
Yeah, I feel that.
My view, sort of overarching about gear, is that it should get out of the way.
Yeah.
Like if it's a good piece of gear, a great piece of gear, you shouldn't even be thinking about it. You should be thinking about playing music. So like all the pieces of gear that I use for what applications, the guitar I designed with PRS, like I don't think about that. Like we designed it so that I wouldn't have to be thinking like, man, is the string gonna fret out? Do I play this? Like I don't want to think about it. I just want to play.
Yeah.
And so if you're making gear choices, you should get stuff that inspires you to make music because you're not thinking about the gear.
Totally. That makes total sense, man, for sure. I want to look at my phone real quick. I think I put like a post out to see if anybody had any questions. My phone's been blowing up, so I just want to see if I can get some fan questions real quick. Okay, so our friend Elon, who was actually just on our podcast earlier this week. This is so shout out to Elon. Make sure you guys check out Koi Boy when you get a chance. They're releasing a bunch of music there. Elon is such a phenomenal guitar player, man. And so he was asking any advice on getting out of a scene you're stuck in and breaking into new music scenes. And yeah, so this is something that we talk about a lot. So I'm curious, actually, your perspective on this.
Does he, maybe like a little bit of clarification, do you think he means like geographically or stylistically?
That's actually a good, he says, I feel like Mark jumps genres so much. So probably genre-wise, but also when he was on here, we were talking about just different cities and breaking into scenes. So probably that too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll try to answer both. My view on geographics, I think, has changed quite a bit over the years because of the way music industry has changed and the rise of social media and the way people are networking now and developing content and essentially building their thing from anywhere in the world. You know, there are artists nowadays that are getting huge followings just from building content from their homes in Des Moines, Iowa, or wherever it may be. I mean, if you have something that's connecting with people and you're consistent with delivering it, you can do it, the music thing from anywhere, you know. I live in Fort Worth, Texas, which has a great music scene, but you wouldn't think of it as next to an LA, right? Or a Nashville or something. But between Fort Worth and Dallas, I found there was plenty of great places to play. My favorite musicians in the world live here, which is really the reason why I stayed from a music perspective. And then I just made sure that I was, still shouting my name from the rooftops, so to speak, and participating in the social media rat race or whatever it is. But also touring my music, playing in bands that were touring, like getting out beyond my zip code, even though this is where I like to live and make my records. So you can do it from anywhere nowadays. You don't necessarily have to move to LA. You don't have to move to Nashville. You don't have to move to New York or whatever other city you might think you need to move to. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Maybe you do, but I would say if you do choose to do that, make sure you have some kind of a network in place before you go, because it's just going to make things easier. Yeah. Because it's going to be hard. Yeah. Because all of a sudden, where there were 10 guitar players, there's 10,000. There might be 10,000 more gigs, but maybe not,
Totally.
So just keep that in mind. But I mean, to sort of shift stylistically, I've always been interested in a lot of things. I mean, I have my sound as a guitarist and as a writer. There are certain things that are core to me, but I knew early on that if I was going to have any chance at having some kind of career, versatility was going to be an asset. And so I took a lot of gigs with lots of different kinds of projects for all different kinds of no money. Just to kind of get experience, and really just tried to be a student of styles. I don't think I mastered everything. Nobody really does that, but I found that early on, if I could be convincing and applicable in many things, I could keep working. And being here in DFW, it's very diverse. Like I would do a hip hop session in the afternoon and a country gig at night. And then like an R&B thing or a gospel thing the next day, and then I would go play a gig with my progressive rock band. So if you're interested in stuff, it'll come. And you might not be interested in everything. Like I'm not interested in becoming a great straight ahead bebop jazz guitar player, so I never really worked on that.
Yeah,
a little bit. I worked on it enough to where if those tunes got called, I wouldn't totally shit the bed. Yeah. But most of the time I would. And it was really kind of a proxy thing because I was playing with a horn player here Keith Anderson, who's a fantastic tenor player. He played with Marcus Miller and Roy Hargrove and Prince. I mean, he's a beast of a dude. But his music was primarily like groove jazz. Like not really smooth jazz, but kind of like funk fusion kind of stuff. And so I learned his catalog, but then occasionally he would call some straight ahead tunes. So I got good enough at those to where I could play them through his set and make music and sound good. But the focus was really his stuff, you know? So if he was playing 90% bebop and standards and then like 10% fusion, I probably wouldn't take the gig.
Right.
You know, because I'm just not that guy.
Right.
And so you'll learn your kind of limits based on actually what is inspiring to you. Like if you're not inspired to be able to play a lot of different things, then don't worry about it. Just play what you like, you know. That's
a great distinction to make.
But anyway.
No, that's a great distinction to make, and I feel like it's super relevant. Do you think that there's an aspect of it that's also like just showing up to where those communities like hang out, and then, you know, if given the opportunity,
absolutely,
like if given the opportunity, then like going and playing, right? Like even if you're not fully comfortable, just putting yourself in the situation and going for it. Is there like an element of that as well, do you think?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and I didn't even talk about that, but yeah, I mean, you know, what happens if social media shuts down tomorrow? Man, you still got to go to the jam session,
right?
You know, that's how I started, because I came up before. You know, I'm not that old, but I came up kind of before that was a thing. Back before that was a networking device, right? So I went to the blues jams, I went to the R&B jams, I sat in, I signed the list, so to speak, and I made connections that way, and so. Thankfully, I like playing blues, for example. I like playing R&B, so it was natural. I didn't go to the straight-ahead jazz jam session.
Right.
I mean, I did, but I would watch. And if somebody asked me to sit in, I'd be like, nope. You know, or what are you playing? I would probably ask that first. Make sure I was something I can hang on. But
yeah,
but yeah, you'll never be able to replace in-person. Yeah, you'll never be able to replace in-person connections and networking. So that's step one. Before you even post an Instagram video.
Yeah, totally, man. Totally. That's for me, like how I was able to get like plugged in, because I'm from South Florida. So like, I was going to the jams in Miami and Fort Lauderdale and West Palm, and I was starting to get established there. And then I moved to Jacksonville,
right.
And it was like just hitting the jam sessions, showing up like every week until now. I don't really do the jams anymore because, you know, you get busy at a certain point. I think you don't need to do that for networking purposes anymore.
Sure.
But like, you know, still just making your face seen. And then of course, just saying yes and getting up there and taking the risk and playing, you know, getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a combination of nowadays, it's sort of a combination of that being present, being seen, and then having some kind of social media output.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to be a quote unquote Instagram guitar player or whatever. You don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
But like, but yeah, if you're really interested in like getting in on the ground floor and working, face-to-face stuff is the way to go.
Totally.
You know, before anything else.
Totally. Mark, I really appreciate you taking the time, man. I don't know if you'd be interested. We do a segment called Unpopular Opinions. I forgot to tell you about that ahead of time, where we just go around and we just
oh no,
each say something. We try and keep it pretty non-controversial. It can be music related.
That's good.
It can be whatever. It doesn't have to be music related. It can be about whatever
like
you
a
want.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no kind of thing.
Dude.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
People have said that before, yeah. And I'm vehemently against pineapple on pizza, but you know.
You know what I'm vehemently against?
What's that?
Well, I'll let you ask first, but go ahead.
No,
I was going to say ranch on hot wings.
You hate
Get out of here.
You don't like that?
We're not friends. If you put the ranch, no.
You're a blue cheese
or
guy.
die.
Yeah, of
Get
course.
out.
He's a blue cheese guy.
Ranch.
Oh my God,
You
dude.
probably put ranch on your... Yes. Those people put ranch on pizza too.
I love ranch on
Can't
pizza.
do it.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Anyway. Yeah. All right. Well, good thing we're 2,000 miles away from each other.
I guess we'll never get to play together.
All right,
now.
what is the actual thing you wanted to ask me about? Yeah, right. Just different sides of the bar.
Yeah. All right. So basically, what we're gonna do is we each go around and we just state an unpopular opinion and we discuss it for a minute. So we'll let Chris go first. Typically, how we started off.
Cool. All right. I've been having this argument with guys recently. At a certain level, your musical heroes are your peers. I've had so many conversations with guys, and they're just like so intimidated, or like if they're like, oh, if I ever got to play with him, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do this, and I'm like, dude, we're doing the same thing. He just sold a couple extra records. Like, go talk to the guy at least. You know what I mean? Like, calm down. It's not as big a deal as you make it. And I feel like I'm in the minority in this. I might not be. Like, most people might have a sensible head on their shoulders, but like, I was talking to a buddy about Derek Trucks. I was like, yeah, dude, I would love to jam on this and that. And he goes, oh, no shot. I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I'd freeze. I'm like, that's lame. I don't know. That's my take.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's one of those things where, and I think this is, I've actually talked about this with some students before who have very strong influences and are wondering what to do with those influences, And I always ask, I said, look, okay, for Derek Trucks, for example, if Derek Trucks calls you, and I think this is the reason why your friend probably acted this way. If Derek Trucks calls you on stage to jam, can you have a musical conversation with Derek Trucks without sounding like a lesser version of Derek Trucks?
Right. Totally.
Right. And so I don't never heard your friend, but he might be such a fan that he if he goes up there and plays open E slide and it's kind of like Derek, but not but not as cool.
Yeah.
Which of course who is, right? But if he's not able to have his own musical conversation, his own musical voice in open E with a slide, whatever, I could see that as being pretty daunting. And I've had to tell myself that too. It's like, because I have very strong influences with certain players, and you don't want to get into a situation where they're just like, hey man, why are you do your thing?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Well, I totally agree, and to both of your points, because I think that there's something to both what you guys are saying. Mark, I totally think can you have your own conversation? For sure, or can you have like your own perspective in the conversation? Certainly, and also just like thinking,
Right.
like, can you even like step into the arena with this guy? Do you think that what you have to say could even has a seat at the table? That's the insecurity that I could see myself having in that situation. But then also to your point, Chris, I think it is important to make to not make such a big distinction between what you're doing versus what your idols are doing. It is important to look at them as peers, only because I believe that if you're going to get to that level, you have to actually see yourself in that level. You can't say, well, this person exists up here, so I'm never going to get there, right? So if you want to actually succeed, you have to kind of it's that dress for the job you want, not the job you have kind of mentality, right?
There you go.
Yeah. And I think the qualifier I put
I
on
would
there
go ahead and do it. Plug me in, man. Let's go.
Yeah, it's like I don't have to sound the greatest I've ever sounded, and maybe the qualifier is like, I said at a certain point. So like, maybe if you've like found your voice on the instrument or something, that's your, at that point you're a peer because you're obviously listening to someone who's found their voice. So like, to your point, if you're just talking, then what are you scared of the conversation for?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's just an insecurity some people have, I think, but I think that it's also like, I think that people that have achieved a certain level of success, whatever that looks like for people, I think it's also worthy to acknowledge that you haven't done that yet either, know, because like that's a workload. That's an entire experience that they've been able to achieve that you haven't achieved yet. So I think it's important to kind of acknowledge that too,
Totally.
Yeah.
Right on.
Mark, you got any unpopular opinions?
Oh gosh. No.
No. Okay.
All of my opinions are very popular.
Yeah. Here's the this is a PR mark coming out.
Yep, there it is.
All right. I'll do one. Let's see. Okay. So at the level that I still exist in the music world is that I still both of us here still have to play bar gigs to survive and make a living. So one of my biggest pet peeves, and I don't even know if it's an unpopular opinion, I think most musicians probably share this, but if you have a sound system at your venue, please have someone who's able to run the system working there. Yeah. Right? Like
I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. That's a fact.
I mean, the venues are the ones that need to hear this more than anyone, right?
Yeah.
Because we all agree, but like they think it's commonplace.
That's the whole thing where it's like you spent, however many thousands of dollars, you have nice speakers, you have like, the preamps and like the mixer. It's like it's all looks beautiful. And like I tell, and it's enough time has passed now. The venue won't even know that this is what I'm talking about. But like, I was on a gig and I asked the guy who I'm pretty sure was just like a manager at the venue. I was like, "Hey man, we're getting a sub frequency up here. We need to take that frequency out?" And he puts his iPad, which has the mixer on it, he puts it down and starts to just kind of scope the speaker out. And I'm like, "Nah, dude, you have to do that." From you have a mixer in your hand. That's how you take the frequency out. And I see him like just kind of sitting there like not knowing what to do with himself. And I was like, you know what? Don't worry, man. We'll deal with it. This is a very low stakes gig. We're not worried about it.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Have you ever had that happen?
I thought of one.
Yes, let's hear it.
I thought of an unpopular opinion, and I'm knock on wood because this might be my famous last words. Gate checking your guitar is not that bad.
Okay,
it's not that bad.
All right,
I've done it a million times, and I've done it a million times, and to this day, nothing bad has ever happened.
Knock on
one
wood.
time,
Knock on
one
wood.
time out of the dozens and dozens of times I've done it, they forgot to put it on the plane, so they put it on the next flight. But I still made the gig. Everything was cool.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to gate check your guitar, and I'll tell you why. It actually shows a little bit of grace. Because what they don't want is a musician with a hothead coming on there demanding space and your underpants are not as important as this thing that I spent they don't care.
Right.
If you go and you say, "Hi, I understand I have a guitar. I would like to gate check this, please." By doing that, they might even be like, "Don't worry about it. We'll make space for you." Right? Or they'll be like, "Okay, this guy's not going to fight me about it. We'll be nice to his stuff." So sometimes you got to play the game. I know I probably just lost 70,000 Instagram followers by saying this or whatever. I don't care. They're all bots anyway. Probably. I think at this point, I don't even know. Not really. Maybe they're real. Who knows? If you're real, let me know. Yeah. But yeah, it's not that bad. I've learned to kind of accept it,
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
What cases do you use?
I use two different cases. I use a Reunion Blues double bag and a mono double bag.
Okay, so the same.
The mono double bag will take a bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Reunion one's not that bad either. I've gate checked in both of them.
See, that makes me feel pretty
I've not
good.
had anything happen.
Yeah.
Because what they do, and really what they do is they put it in with the strollers. They're not throwing bags on top of it.
Right.
They might put a stroller on top, but it's a guitar.
Yeah.
And
the cases do a pretty
maybe
good
don't
job.
tour with your 1904 Les Paul.
Yeah. 1904 Les Paul.
You get these guys that are like, "Oh, United smashed my guitar." It's like, well, you brought a pre-war D28 in like a cardboard case, dude. You need an ATA bulletproof Humvee of a case for that if you're going to fly with, or do the Bonamassa thing and buy a seat.
Right.
Yeah.
But like so many of these guitar destruction things, it's kind of, I hate to say it, but a lot of times it's like, dude, that's the wrong case.
Yeah. No, that's true.
I don't know, whatever. knocking on my desk isn't even real wood. It's fiberboard shit.
Knock on linoleum.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll knock on one of these guitars.
Yeah, there you go. I when I checked, I have a mono case. I also traveled with a Reunion Blues recently, and it worked fine. I was very nervous about it because I've only traveled with a guitar a handful of times. I luckily never had anything get lost, but it is a bit nerve wracking when you give them
that's
your
the thing.
stuff.
And I'll say that checking it is different than gate checking.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask. You're making a distinction here, right?
Gate checking is where you take your guitar in your hopefully padded gig bag through security.
Yeah.
Or they might open it up, whatever. And you go to the gate where you hand them your boarding pass, and then they give you a little tag, and you leave it at the jet bridge. The baggage handler takes it downstairs and puts it in a compartment with the strollers.
Right.
And then when you get off the plane, he brings it back to you. He or she brings it back to you. Checking it at the ticket counter is a whole other thing. And I agree with everyone who hates that, because I hate that too.
Yeah.
But gate checking is not as bad. Everyone's afraid to gate check, and they get on the plane. They're like, "Oh, there's room in the overhead." It's like, bro, it's not your plane. It's not. If it was your plane, you'd be on the Iron Maiden plane.
Yeah,
where they have their own plane. It's not your plane. You're one out of 9,000 people that need to get where they're going.
Totally.
Don't be that guy.
Totally.
Just be cool, and they'll be cool to you most of the time. 90% of the time.
Yeah, I like that.
So,
Unpopular
opinion, I know.
No, I think that's a good one. I wasn't able to even get to the gate with my plane last time. I was flying out of LAX, and she was like, you can't get past security with that. And I was like, are you sure? She was like, yeah, you gotta go check it now. So then ever since then, I've just been like, I just check my, but I have to try, and next time I'll try and get through security with it. Just see
I was
if I
gonna
can do
say,
it that
you
way.
just taking her word at
What
it.
kind of guitar do you have?
I was traveling with my Strat.
Oh, dude, you can run over a Strat with a truck.
Yeah.
And it'll play. You can gate check that all day long.
Yeah, and I've got my mono case with it too, so I'm not super worried
You're
about it.
fine.
I just don't want them to lose it. That's more what I'm concerned about.
But that, like I said, that's happened. That was the one time when it just got put on the next flight, and that was out of dozens and dozens of gate checks.
Yeah, it's a rare occasion. Yeah.
So and they were just like, what? Like, they couldn't believe it. They were like, how the hell did we screw that up?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, that's certainly comforting to know
anyway.
that it doesn't happen that often.
Checking it at the ticket counter is a whole other thing. If you're going to do that, you better have, the defense contractor Blackwater case.
Yeah.
Otherwise, good luck.
Yeah. Well, Mark, thanks so much for being here again, man. This is a lot of fun.
My pleasure.
Really glad
Nice
to have
chat.
a conversation with you. Good luck with everything. We'll always be keeping a lookout, and hope to see you out there with our own stuff sometime.
Right on, fellas. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Peace.
Talk to you later. Bye.